From the grave! The drugs have worn off. I am fine. So let's just get right into it.
A contract can be used by both parties. This happened some years ago when I had just gotten hired for a part-time position in a retail store. All was good until the summer came to a close, when my manager came to me and offered me a full-time position, which I gladly took. Less than 2 weeks later into the summer, he changed my hours back to part-time. I hadn't thought about getting the temporary full-time thing in writing, as he seemed like a trustworthy guy. It made no sense, as I did a good job and helped out with things in my contract and mention when I had a time, as I get bored quickly. I found out that even though he had years of experience in the field, he had massively overspent on the wage bill and had to cut down to avoid getting fired by a head office. When I voiced my concern over this, the only response was, "I'm only obliged to give you 20 hours a week, as the contract states." I wanted to chew him out verbally, but I kept my cool and decided that if he wanted to play that game, I would too. When I got home that night, I read my entire contract and noted the clause that I could use. One clause stated that my responsibilities was unloading the trucks, take care of the stockroom, and keep the shelves stocked. Another mentioned that I shouldn't do other tasks as their insurance only covered me for specific areas I was meant to work. Next day, he told me to help out the cashiers as the lines were long. "Sorry, can't do, as the contract states that it isn't part of my job here, and I should refrain from doing that. You can find it in my contract as Clause 9A and 9B. He was fuming, face totally red, and he just walked away without saying anything. Another thing I noticed in my contract besides my 30-minute lunch break is I had a 10-minute break I could take when I wanted, so I gave him 5 minutes, walked into his office and told him I was taking my 10-minute break. "What are you talking about? You only have one break, and that's for lunch." "My contract says otherwise. It's Clause 10. When I got back from the break, he asked me to clean something up in the store. I couldn't believe that he couldn't take a hint. "Sorry, can't do. Clause 9A and 9B prevents me from doing it." Next day, the customer asked for help with something and said, "Sorry, can't do. It's not my job. Find somebody else." My boss heard about this, yelled at me, but I managed to stay calm and answered with clauses that prevented me from helping the customer. Legally, I was in the right, and he couldn't do anything, but I could see hatred in his eyes. I was still on a trial period, which meant he could fire me with only 24 hours notice, but I could also resign with only 24 hours notice. I knew that once the summer ended and everyone were back from their vacations, he would fire me right away. I had started looking for other jobs and it was going all right, so I decided to quit at the worst possible time when it showed itself. At the end of the summer, he had to fire an individual because they were stealing from the store. It was the perfect time to quit and leave him badly undermanned for the week. 24 hours and 1 minute before my next shift, I sent him my resignation before I sent my message to my coworkers about how they should remember to take all their breaks and not violate their contract by doing stuff they aren't allowed to do. I heard it gave him a little chaos when people followed my advice.
The one thing I definitely liked about this video is I love that he used the boss's own ammunition against him. Good thing to do every now and then if you work at any place is to read the contract in its entirety. Anything that you sign, ask for a copy of, because you never know, you might actually be doing more than what you're hired on to, and there might be some clauses in there that you didn't know about. A lot of companies like taking advantage of the idea that you don't know that you're actually entitled to breaks that they should be giving you.
You've been randomly selected. This happened about 3 years ago while I was going through an airport in the US. I walked through the metal detector, something must have beeped, and they needed to pat me down. After a thorough pat-down, I put my shoes on and started to walk over to grab my bag. A TSA agent stops me and says, "You've been randomly selected. Please step into the body scanner." I was polite, but said that I really didn't want to get into the body scanner. I was polite, but said I didn't want to get into the body scanner, and asked if there was another way. The agent said that I could get a pat-down, and I said, "Well, I just got a pat-down, so..." They angrily told me to pick an option. So I took 2 steps backwards to a woman who had patted me down 30 seconds ago and spread him again. While she was patting me down, I asked her if she found anything new. She stared daggers at me, but let me go.
You've been randomly selected. I was randomly selected once. I was randomly selected because there was fluid running down my arm because a blister had burst on my arm from the sunburn I got from Jamaica. And because Jamaica is an international flight, you have to hop off of the plane, go through TSA again, and they wanted me to go through the full body scan machine, which I was still a little uncomfortable with, but they wanted me to go through it, and I couldn't raise my arms over my head. Fun fact, leaking fluid out of your arm and not being able to raise your arms over your head kind of trigger like a little concern from the TSA. And as they told me to walk through the metal detector, I realized I had worn the wrong pants for today, and I was wearing a pants with chains and zippers on them because they were comfortable. However, that set off the metal detector. At this point in time, I look like a prime suspect. So they bring me behind a visor. The guy starts to pat me down. I explain to him, listen, I got a really bad sunburn on both my arms. That's why I couldn't raise it. And he goes, okay, it can't be that bad though. The man rolls up my sleeve to see something go from being pale all the way up to Red Lobster red. And he's like, that is a very bad burn. And I'm like, yeah. He goes, I'm going to have to pat it down now. So he goes, I'm sorry. And he takes his hand and just right down my arm. 30 seconds of pain later, I emerge from behind a visor. Everything's fine. It didn't get as bad as I thought it was going to be, but still, that was a situation that I was in. Now, this person, honestly, the TSA randomly selected this individual, and they kind of got what they were asking for. I understand that the TSA is there to protect, and a lot of people see it as more of just a show. It's more of just a show to scare people away that could potentially be carrying something bad. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that's entirely a bad thing that they're there, but at the same rate, I understand it can get annoying, especially if you're rushing from point A to point B.
Easy salt, Karen. So once in my younger days when I worked in a conventional job, I was making food at a lovely place called Quebec Tango. It was nearing the end of my shift, but as what typically happens when you're working in a kitchen, you get an order right after you've cleaned down all your equipment and stocked everything. In comes a delightful lady named Karen. Karen ordered a very simple order, a pretzel with cheese dip. No problem. I quickly make the order as it is a simple one and hand it to her with a smile and tell her to have a good night. End of story, right? Wrong. Karen opens the box and clearly was just baffled by what she sees. She tells me the pretzel is all wrong and how could I ruin her night. I asked her what was wrong with it and she doesn't tell me. I offer to make her a new one and she accepts. I make a new one completely normal just like the order says and hand her a coupon for free ice cream for her next visit. All was well. Nope. This time, she screams at me and pulls a typical Karen and asks for my manager. I said sure, and went to get her. Karen is now yelling at the manager when she finally tells us what's wrong with the pretzel, and she said,
"The salt grains are too big. Will you make the pretzels correctly?"
That's right. Karen got mad because the salt grain size was too large for her liking. My manager smiles and says, sure, we'll make you a new one. So we make the new one, and my manager crushed up the salt and put it in there and handed it to her. That's when Karen complained that they were too small. At this point, we have clearly figured out she wants free food and to complain, so we stop giving her what she wants. And when she goes to pay, she's charged for all 3 pretzels. She's mad about this, thinking we were going to give her the pretzels for free. Typically, we only charge you for the remade one. Hey, a crappy attitude can get you things you don't want.
First, I want to say, if you are the individual that comes in 5 minutes before a restaurant closes, you are a horrible person. Unless you're picking up food, you are the worst person. Because everyone in that restaurant has already cleaned, they want to put stuff away, and especially if you want to sit down and eat, you're the worst person. They all hate you. I guarantee they all hate you. They don't like you, they never will, and on top of that, I can't guarantee what they'll do to your food. Rule number 1 of food, any food industry, don't piss off the people that handle it, all right? Don't show up 5 minutes before a store closes and order the most expensive thing or the biggest and messiest thing they could possibly make. However, this lady did not do that. But I'm just saying, that's my disclaimer. That's my PSA for right now. Don't be that guy or girl. Don't be Karen. All right? Don't don't. This person was looking for free food, and I've experienced this more than once. And these type of people will find every little thing to bitch about, and it's the worst experience ever as the employee. And yes, you have to be egregious to the individual, but after a while you start feeling it out and you're like, you're just looking for free shit. And then it starts falling apart for that person, because now you got people that are serving you that don't even want to serve you. They don't want to see you. They don't want you there, but they're forced to, and they're forced to be nice. But once you've shown your hand, it doesn't really make them want to stick around that much longer. And honestly, at the end of the day, when they saw through her little guise of trying to be the customer in distress, and then ended up charging her for all 3 pretzels, she totally deserved it. So that's all the stories for today. I would have to say, out of all of them, I did appreciate the first one the most. But the last one, seeing as that I do work in food, it hits home. It hits home. I am very passionate about the anger I would have towards an individual that did this. Tell me what your favorite story is in the comment section below. And if you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to leave a like and ring the bell icon, because I heard from a little birdie that just maybe it gives you a update on when I decide to upload. Now then, quick little touch base on that, guys. I'm going to have a bigger video on that. I had a little thing where I just couldn't. I had taken a vacation, and I needed an extended vacation. Honestly, guys, that's really what it boiled down to. Editing and everything like that does take a toll on an individual, especially when I want to upload every day, but I couldn't get my mindset out of I need to relax. And finally, I feel that the relaxation is done. It's time to get back to work, and I'm glad I'm back here doing this again. I know there's not a whole lot of you here right now, but my hopes is that eventually, sometime, we'll be able to reach out to as many people as we can. Thank you guys very much for watching. Thank you all very much for following along. And as usual, as always, my friends, stay frosted and keep moving forward.